Today on the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement.
We are going to discuss what financial freedom means to you and your retirement.
And on our Coach's Corner, we're going to discuss why you cannot afford to make your life savings and your retirement a guessing game.
And on our Chalk Talk segment today, we're going to discuss what type of asset allocation you should focus on in retirement.
So sit back, relax, and learn. The Chad Slagle Show starts now.
I'm Chad Slagle. I believe financial planning is about educating people and empowering them to make better decisions with their hard-earned dollars. Coaching gives me satisfaction from watching a player succeed and get better. You need an experienced team around you. The best coaches have great assistant coaches. I have brought a lot of the techniques and structure I learned from playing and coaching football and apply them to the world of investing. My goal now is to coach as many individuals and families as I can on how to get successfully to and through retirement.
Welcome into the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. I'm Wendy Erickson, here with the coach, Chad Slagle. Today on the Clipboard segment, we're going to discuss what financial freedom means to you and your retirement.
That's right, Wendy. Financial freedom can mean something different to everyone. And in my opinion, it needs to be personal. It is good to dream big and be specific about your goals, especially for retirement. So think about it. What does financial freedom look like to you? It could be something as simple as paying a car repair bill or a doctor bill without stressing out about it. Or maybe it is to take your entire family on a trip every year without it straining on your budget. Or maybe it is to buy a second home out in Florida or Arizona, or maybe that new RV or boat. Whatever it is, you should be aware of what it means to you when you're financially independent. You have options. And many pre-retirees and retirees have the nest egg and life savings to have financial freedom, but they do not have that right direction. Many people that come into our office focus so heavily on the investments, such as their stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, they don't understand the big picture and about how important it is, Wendy, to have that game plan.
Financial freedom just has such a nice ring to it.
It does.
No worries. I know I'm still paying for college and I've got some weddings in my future, but the thought beyond that of when it's finally my time and my husband and I can maybe do some traveling or spoil any future grandchildren we have, financially freedom. You know, we'll be financially
when you,
free.
You plan for that big trip and you pay for it and you think, man, that's no big deal, as opposed to, a lot of people are stressing about things like that. And you want to get to the point where you don't have to do that. And we all want financial freedom. We just have to be able, and you have to be able to define what that is to you and make sure that you build that blueprint or that framework to be able to achieve it.
Well, I know that in planning ahead for things like the health issues that we always talk about here, so that you're totally financially free. When you can do what you want, but you're also ready for the things that you don't expect in retirement.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is how you can have that financial freedom, and also about having that asset allocation so you can get to the point where you can have that financial freedom and be able to enjoy retirement.
All right, so I'm going to take some major notes today. When we return on the Coach's Corner, we are going to discuss why you cannot afford to make your life savings and your retirement a guessing game. We'll be right back.
The number one concern of retirees today is outliving their hard-earned dollars. It is more important now than ever to educate and empower yourself to make better decisions with your money that it has taken you 30 to 40 years to accumulate. How do you do this? By using our financial GPS, our guided planning system. This is a 4-step process to help get you successfully to and through retirement. The first step in this process is to create clarity. Here we will help identify your goals as well as your concerns and identify what you want to accomplish in retirement. The second step, we will analyze the risk you're taking with your current portfolio, and this step will also identify exactly what you are paying in fees. In the third step, we will evaluate and assess your current plan and help identify the gap between the missing pieces. And in the fourth and final step, this is where we will work together to implement a plan of action to accomplish your retirement goals. And this process can take place at any one of our convenient locations in Missouri and in Illinois. So call now to get set up on that right path on your journey through retirement.
Welcome back to the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. We are back with the coach, Chad Slagle, and his colleague, Chad Tobin. And today on the Coach's Corner, we're going to discuss why you cannot afford to make your life savings and your retirement a guessing game.
That's right, Wendy. Just like with anything that is important in life, you have to have a plan to be successful. When it comes to choosing the right college, you do not choose instantly without considering all of your options. Or with a wedding, there is a ton of planning that is involved. Or building a new house, you have to have that blueprint. All of these are important things in your life. You have to have a plan. And the same goes for your retirement, because when you retire today, it's like having 25 to 35 years of unemployment. But unfortunately, we see people come into our office day in and day out, and they really don't have much of a plan at all. The only thing they have, it really is a kind of an idea, and that is their retirement date, an idea of when they want to retire. And that's a great place to start, but you need to build from that point. Many people are focused on their investments, or what we call asset allocation, and they think that is the only type of retirement planning that they need to do. So what we want to show you today on the Coach's Corner is the wrong way to view asset allocation.
Well, and I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, Chad, think asset allocation is just maybe some of those investment vehicles that they're invested in, and really that's not the case. When you build the plan, you can have diversification inside your investments, but your plan really has some separate asset classes that you have to fill in to really build that plan.
All right, well then let's just jump in and explain the wrong way to view asset allocation.
Well, the first thing we want to talk about is understanding what true diversification over just diversification is. And according to Investpedia, diversification is a risk management strategy that mixes a wide variety of investments within a portfolio. A diversified portfolio contains a mix of distinct asset types and investment vehicles in an attempt at limiting exposure to any single asset or risk. However, when we talk to people that come into our office daily about diversification, they talk about, well, their advisor has taken this mutual fund, and let's say, Chad, back in 2008, most mutual funds today compare themselves to certain indexes like the S&P 500 index. So back in 2008, when the S&P 500 index was down 38%, a lot of money managers and mutual fund managers would say, hey, our mutual fund did better than the S&P 500 in 2008. It was only down 30%. So that doesn't mean you lost 38% of your money. It only means you lost 30% of your money. Even they outperformed that index. So you have to understand what true diversification and what total returns are when it comes to your hard-earned dollars.
Yeah, and I think, it looks, a lot of times we see investors or maybe advisors, they just try to compare, the investments to one another. And as you just mentioned, Chad, an investment that's tied to an S&P index is completely different than an investment that's tied to a bond index or something more conservative. So we have to understand diversification is good, but you have to understand how to spread that through different asset classes.
Sounds like a lot of us truly don't understand what it means to us, and that's what we need to figure that out. Yeah. What's your second point?
Another point would be tactical and strategic asset allocation. And tactical asset allocation is an investment strategy that actively adjusts a portfolio's composition in response to market conditions. In other words, mutual funds. In other words, are actively managed accounts. Another one would be what's called strategic asset allocation, which is a passive strategy that maintains fixed allocations at all times. It would be like index funds or ETFs where you're actually tracking the indexes. The problem is we see pre-retirees and retirees today focus too heavily on this, and as we just said, really not on that big picture, understanding where you're at, how far you are from retirement, and really what your goals are when it comes to your hard-earned dollars.
Well, and I'm sitting here listening, and many people at home are probably thinking, what the heck is tactical strategic asset allocation? But, to be very simple, I think, earlier this week, sitting with a couple that 65, 62, just retired, and they basically said, hey, at this stage of our life, we really don't want to be a lot of diversification, asset allocation, and take that market risk. So it's good when you're young, working, and all this tactical and passive and asset allocation talk is important when you're okay taking the risk. But once you retire, you really want something simple and you want some more security in your plan.
All right, what about the last wrong way to view asset allocation?
Speaking what Chad just talked about with his clients that he met with, is really a guessing game when we talk about tactical and asset allocation and what this looks like. So really it's a guessing game, as you can see here, number 3. And tactical asset allocation, which is what a lot of money managers use today, is just that. It's a guessing game. Tactical investors must be open to responding to the opportunities the markets provide and make sure they gauge these opportunities accurately. In essence, they're constantly chasing the market. And the problem is you often pay these money managers large fees to guess and try to beat the market in the indexes, like we talked about earlier, Chad, with the S&P 500 index, which often never happens. And here's an example of that. The average 5-year performance of Morningstar's tactical asset allocation, that actively managed fund, to date was 5.35%. Meanwhile, the 5-year return on the S&P 500 index was 12.5%. So when it comes to retirement, you can't afford to guess and chase the market. You need to be proactive and build a game plan and not react to what happens with the ups and downs of the market and guess what it's going to do, especially when it comes to your money you've worked 30 to 40 years to accumulate.
Well, and I think if you're going to take your retirement savings and go to a casino, I think you want a pretty good probability that you're going to be on the winning side of the table there. And I think that's what you're saying is that guessing game. If we're going to use this asset allocation for all of our money, there's a probability, there's a chance that we may not be the winner on that. And I think asset allocation needs to be part of your overall game plan, but it isn't the whole picture.
Especially, Chad, as you get closer to retirement. You can't afford to make up for those losses.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a gambler and I don't like to lose, so there you go. To download our free white paper today about the value of an objective opinion, visit schlegelfinancial.com/empoweryou. Coming up on Chalk Talk, we're going to discuss what type of asset allocation you should focus on in retirement.
Let's go.
He's such an involved dad. He's always telling the kids stories. I remember when so-and-so said I couldn't do this or I didn't make this team. That's what drives him. In our family, we always tell our kids to stick up for each other, stand behind one another. He feels it's his role to provide, keep us safe, and to make sure that the kids are taken care of. A lot of Chad's clients have the same traditional values, and he bonds with them. Each family has a different set of circumstances, and each family is unique and different. The common thread between all of Chad's clients is that they want the best for their family, just as he would our own family.
Welcome back once again to the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. So we just discussed why you cannot afford to make your life savings and your retirement a guessing game. Now we need to discuss what type of asset allocation you should focus on in retirement.
For sure, Wendy. Not all savings are created equal. So deciding where to put the money you save or discovering asset allocation is just as important as what percentage of your income you are saving. So now we want to take a closer look at what the investing world calls asset allocation and how you should view it for your retirement. Asset allocation in retirement is basically implementing a strategy that balances risk and reward by adjusting the percentage you put into different buckets. And the amount you put into each bucket will depend on your risk tolerance, short or long-term goals, as well as your time frame. Once you figure out an effective asset allocation model, you can enjoy your money and maintain a fulfilling lifestyle at every stage of life. Tony Robbins wrote a book called Money, Master the Game, which are the 7 steps to financial freedom. And he interviewed the most brilliant minds in the investment world and broke down what we, normal everyday investors, need to understand to be successful. And one of those, which we're going to talk about right now, is what is asset allocation for those of you that are retired or those of you that want to retire in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, and Chad, I think, I heard a friend kind of say, I sat down with my advisor, I wanted a simple plan, and I got some 50-page report that talked about a lot of different things that we didn't understand. And I think it's important, if you break your money in 3 different buckets, as we're going to talk about, it helps simplify things, and it will help create that good safe risk ratio and your risk tolerance to build that game plan.
Perfect. So we'll talk about buckets, right? What
Yeah,
are the
buckets.
3 buckets and what they mean to you?
Financial planning doesn't have to be difficult. You just got to have it in different buckets. So the first bucket we want to talk about now is what we call the secure bucket. And the secure bucket, as you can see on your screen here, we talk about cash, money market accounts, your safe monies, government bonds, CDs, your home, your pensions, your guaranteed annuities, your life insurance policy. In other words, you want to make sure when you take a look at your overall portfolio that you take some of that money that you've worked your entire life to create and you want to put some of that money in the secure bucket. Where number one, Chad, you know it's safe. If this market has a 10, 20 to 30% correction, you know that money will not lose a dime. Also, when it comes to income that you have to have, as we mentioned, pension, Social Security, or money off your own personal investments, that you want to make sure comes in each and every month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live and no matter how long your spouse lives, it has to be sitting in that secure bucket where you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to come in each and every month. Doesn't matter what happens in the market, doesn't matter what happens with interest rates, you know that money is always going to be there.
Well, and I think the number one thing that secure buckets can provide is that peace of mind, and it's all about income. It's income number one. So if you're fortunate enough to where husband and wife, you both have good pensions, you've got Social Security coming in, you know, you may have that income solved, but what we're seeing is this is a pensionless society. So many households today, they don't have that income solved. So that's why we believe this is probably the number one and most important bucket that you have to fulfill first.
All right, the second bucket is called the risk growth bucket.
Yeah, so once you have that secure bucket set up where you know that income's coming in to support you and your wife or your family for the rest of your life, then we can afford to have some money sitting in the growth bucket. Of course, it is at risk in the market, but it's there to grow. It's there to keep up the rate of inflation, cost of living. We're talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You could have some real estate, different collectibles. And again, this money is here to grow. And when we have this growth bucket, if the market goes down, it's really not a big deal with the money that's sitting in the growth bucket because we do not need that money to live off of. We can wait for the market to come back up, Chad, and when the market's at an all-time high or it's to a point where you've made some good gains, then you can go in and harvest some of those gains. But if it's down, it's not a big deal. We don't have to go in and sell shares of mutual funds or stocks at a loss to get the income we need. Why? Because we have enough money sitting in the secure bucket to do that when the market is down.
Well, and as you mentioned, another reason to have money in this growth bucket that's going to go up and it's going to go down with the market is to kind of keep up with inflation and have that inflation protection. And, you know, a lot of times we talk a lot about, you know, if we're going to be in stocks, we want those companies, those equities to actually pay good, consistent dividends. So as the market is up or the market is down, we may be reinvesting those dividends, or a lot of clients may be receiving those dividends as a little extra income. So I think this growth bucket is for longer term and inflation protection.
Well, and of course, the last bucket is the dream bucket, which we all want to have.
Absolutely.
One of those.
We all have dreams, and you know, it's that extra bucket that we have. And here, you know, these are things that you work all your life for. Say you want to have a second home in Florida or Arizona. Say you want to have that RV or boat when you retire. Or maybe, as I mentioned earlier, it's taking that one big trip where you take your kids and grandkids every year to that great destination. You know, this is money that you save up for in that dream bucket. And it would be also, let's say you hit the jackpot, not the lottery or not the gambling boat as Mr. Tobin was talking about, but if you get a bonus or a payout of some kind, you know, put that in that dream bucket, put that to the side for the extra things. And let's say it gets a positive hit and you score big, as we mentioned earlier, then you harvest some of those gains and put that money in the dream bucket. Or maybe it's money that you have set aside to be left to your beneficiaries in the most tax efficient manner if something were to happen to you. And we also talk about this dream bucket or this extra bucket. Maybe it's money you have set aside for that unknown, which would be like long-term care expenses as well, Chad.
Yeah, and this is the fun bucket, as Wendy mentioned. And I think, you know, a lot of times, a lot of our clients will throw, you know, hey, we'd like to plan for our grandkids' college, or we're going to put some money away kind of to make them feel better. But really, it's about whatever you desire. And in retirement, whatever you desire, and it's that early stage of retirement where you're probably going to use this dream bucket the most.
And I would say, Wendy, a lot of people that we talk to today, they have the assets to make sure it lasts throughout the rest of their life, but too many people today, they sit on that money and they don't spend it. They don't have these dream buckets, if you will. They don't take the kids and the grandkids on one big trip every year. That they do without on things that they've always wanted because they don't have a plan and they're afraid if they spend too much money, the money's going to run out. But you can have those things if you build that game plan first and plan properly. And again, as I mentioned, have that framework to be able to have that dream bucket and those extras to be able to spend time with your kids and grandkids. Because as I talk about all the time, you know, your kids are not going to remember and your grandkids are not going to remember the money you left them, but they're going to remember that time on the boat, that time in the RV. They're going to remember that big trip that you took them to the Grand Canyon or Disney World. That's what they're going to remember. So make sure that you set money aside to be able to enjoy and do those things. Because again, that's why you work 30 to 40 years to get to this point, is to be able to enjoy it.
That is so true, and a great way to look at asset allocation. We have more information ahead. We want to remind you, though, to download our free white paper today about the value of an objective opinion. Visit slagleFinancial.com/empoweryou. When we come back on our strategy play, the Chads are going to show you an example of how to properly use the 3 buckets of money to be successful in retirement.
The number one concern of retirees today is outliving their hard-earned dollars. It is more important now than ever to educate and empower yourself to make better decisions with your monies that it has taken you 30 to 40 years to accumulate. How do you do this? By using our financial GPS, our guided planning system. This is a 4-step process to help get you successfully to and through retirement. The first step in this process is to create clarity. Here we will help identify your goals as well as your concerns and identify what you want to accomplish in retirement. The second step, we will analyze the risk you're taking with your current portfolio, and this step will also identify exactly what you are paying in fees. In the third step, we will evaluate and assess your current plan and help identify the gap between the missing pieces. And in the fourth and final step, this is where we will work together to implement a plan of action to accomplish your retirement goals. And this process can take place at any one of our convenient locations in Missouri and in Illinois. So call now to get set up on that right path on your journey through retirement. Welcome back to the Chad Schlegel Show, coaching you to and through retirement. On this week's strategy play, we're going to show you an example of how to properly use the 3 buckets of money to be successful in retirement. And really, Chad, financial planning doesn't have to be overly difficult to understand. However, as you mentioned, you had some clients this past week. They came in and they had a 50-page report, and it really doesn't have to be that difficult. So what we want to talk about now, as you get closer to retirement, or when you do retire, you need to take a look at your overall financial picture, your assets, and you want to make sure that money is set up into 3 different buckets: that secure bucket, that growth bucket, and that dream bucket or extra bucket that we just talked about.
Yeah, and I think, in a meeting, a lot of things you're going to dive in pretty deep. But when you look at it from a 30,000-foot view, keeping things simple seems to make a lot more sense when it comes to building that retirement plan. So we'll kind of look here. We have an average couple, Mr. and Mrs. Both of them are 60 years of age. They each have a little over $2,000 a month coming in Social Security. So they got about $50,000 a year coming in Social Security that, as we talked about, is going to last throughout the rest of their life. But their expenses are $80,000 a year. So they're needing about $30,000 a year from their investments, from that nest egg to live on.
Again, to be clear, they're 60 now. Their game plan is to retire at 62, and when they kick Social Security in, they're going to need about $80,000 a month. Right now, they have about $1 million. So they want to start building for that point 2 years down the road where they can get to that point, and they know that they have a game plan where their money's going to last throughout the rest of their life. And they realize, hey, if we have a 20 to 30% correction and all our money's sitting in the growth bucket, we no longer have $1 million. We may only have 700,000 or 800,000. So now is the time to start planning. And the way you do that is you put enough money in that secure bucket. As we mentioned, Chad, it's safe. If they need income off of this, which they're going to need about 30 to 40,000, we know that money's going to come in each and every month. Doesn't matter what happens in the market, doesn't matter what happens with interest rates. We know that money's always going to be there. And once you have that, then we can afford to put a little more money in the growth bucket. It's there for the long term. It's there to keep up the rate of inflation and cost of living because there's only 62. We know everything is going to go up, but also they want to make sure they build this growth bucket so they can harvest some of those gains and set that money here over on the dream bucket, as we mentioned earlier, for extra things that they want, maybe a second home, things that the lifestyle that they want to be able to have in retirement. And as we said, extra things that they desire.
Well, and I think you mentioned it earlier because, if they just have everything sitting in one bucket or invested in one world, and, a lot of times people are scared to go out there and take a trip to do certain things, and because they don't have clarity with their plan, they don't have these 3 buckets specifically set up so they know exactly how that money is going to react in good and bad times.
And the key is, Chad, you don't want to have a guessing game or a guessing plan when it comes to your retirement. Are you playing the guessing game with your life savings in retirement? Do you need help building a game plan that incorporates all 3 buckets? If so, we encourage you to give us a call today, and that's this week's Strategy Play.
If you have any questions about today's show, or if you'd like for us to discuss a new topic, email us at askchad@slagelfinancial.com to have your questions answered on the show. We'll be right back with some of the key takeaways from today.
Your host, the coach, Chad Slagle, and joining
I'll be with you guys in just a few minutes.
When it comes to your health, your life, your family, your home, and your hard-earned dollars, of course you want to make sure you're working with that sharp, energetic, knowledgeable individual that is always looking out for your best interest.
Such short notice, appreciate it.
Thanks. It's time to get your financial house in order. This is the new age of retirement planning. In the Wall Street world, that's what they talk about. You got to have equity. Back into the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. We are Slagle Financial. Call now, 888-294-9248.
Welcome back into the Chad Slagle Show, coaching you to and through retirement. We have covered a lot of ground today. What would you say are some of the key takeaways, Chad?
Number one, Wendy, would be do not guess when it comes to your retirement and your hard-earned dollars. Make sure that you have that framework so you can be successful in retirement. Number two, make sure you have money in all three buckets when we talk about retirement: the secure bucket, the growth bucket, and the dream bucket. And number three, work with an advisor who can help you with your asset allocation, and an advisor that understands true diversification when it comes to your hard-earned dollars.
After your explanation, asset allocation is not that difficult to understand.
It is not that difficult to understand, that's right.
We all need to pay attention. Well, we have more information for you to download our free white paper today about the value of an objective opinion. Visit slagelfinancial.com/empoweryou. And Slagle Financial and their team of advisors have educational events as well coming up in your area to make sure you are prepared for today's retirement. For more information and to sign up for one of these events, call 888-294-9248 or visit chadslagleshow.com.
Remember, folks, success is waking up in the morning, whoever you are, wherever you are, no matter how old or young you are, and bounding out of bed because there's something out there that you love to do, that you believe in, that you're good at, and you can hardly wait to get at it again today. At Slagle Financial, realize that this is bigger than our team. This is about educating you, the public, and our wonderful clients, and empowering you to make better decisions with your hard-earned dollars. For my colleague Chad Tobin, my co-host Wendy Erickson, this is the coach, Chad Slagle. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to visiting with each and every one of you next week.
Clothing for the Chad Slagle Show is provided by AL Custom Clothiers, a custom men's clothier that understands the value of offering our customers the best for less. alcustomclothiers.com or 314-570-6000.